Mr. Roten, you are live on YouTube.
Amy, can you hear us? Okay, thank you. We'll resume this session of the Board of Education for September the 13th, 2021. We started with closed session and now we're back open in open session for the meeting. Next on the agenda under open session, I have the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you will, join me in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and be seated. Next on the agenda, under number 2, we have comments from the superintendent.
So I have a few things to share today that are some positive things going on within our school district. First of all, we had a generous donation of a flagpole for Ashe County High School. And so if you come to the game, to our first home game that we've been able to play on Friday night, you will get to see the flag and flagpole donated by Vinoy Construction. And so we are so thankful for Vinoy Construction for donating this flagpole. And they did so at the high school to remember incredible men and women who serve our great country, the United States of America. So we are very proud of that flagpole. We're very proud of Ashe County Schools, and we're very thankful that we have a community that cares not just about our schools, but our veterans as well. So that you will see very soon. So thank you to Vinoy Construction. We have some exciting things that have happened recently, believe it or not, and it seems like a lifetime ago already. Since our last regularly scheduled board meeting, we had the Ashe Blast, back to school blast. And so when I said, was that really after the last regular board meeting? I know that we had one in between there, or actually a couple in between there. But I wanted to say thank you to our community. Thank you to the Sheriff's Department. What a fantastic partnership that we have between local churches and businesses. The Shoes for Kids program that gave, gosh, at least $25,000 worth of shoes. We gave away hundreds and hundreds of brand new shoes for children. The time that some of our hairdressers in the local community gave, cutting hair, that was one of my favorites. I mean, kids having a fresh haircut for the first day of school. We loaded backpacks. I know Amy and Jamie and I had fun at 10 o'clock the night before at Walmart thinking, oh gosh, we're gonna run out. And we ran out anyway, but buy more stuff through the generous donation of lots of different businesses. So thank you. Our community really knows how to pull together, and that was pretty special. So between the Sheriff's Department and our community in general, that's something I think we can celebrate. And I say that was the first annual. We plan to do that again. And of course, thank you to our board members who are there who donated their time. Thank you to our schools who were there on a Saturday before school to see smiling faces of kids and families. That was a lot of fun. So that was one of the positive things. On Friday, we hosted the State Teacher of the Year, Eugenia Floyd. And so she is from Chapel Hill Carborough Schools and is trying to visit all of the different school districts. And we visited 2 schools. Her first request was to see Holly McClure, our district teacher of the year, which we loved seeing Holly. Holly is in a role currently. She was in self-contained last year. This year, she's teaching inclusion. And so we got to see her in an English class. We also visited the classroom of our beginning teacher of the year, Charlene Horton. And along with lots of different teachers at the middle school, they were having their very first Maker Day. And so students were really in a creative mode. Teachers were in a mode where they were helping to facilitate that throughout the school. And we saw evidence of high levels of learning, lots of STEM and lots of creativity, the things that we want to see in our schools. We also visited Blue Ridge Elementary School following the visit to the middle school. And we saw the clubs, the new club day that was taking place. And our STEM innovator had been busy working with Keep Ash Beautiful. And so third grade students had some lessons on the new river and the cleanups that are going on and things that we can do right here in our own community. And lots of collaboration that we saw. So I was really proud of what I saw from our teachers at Blue Ridge Elementary, as well as Ashe County Middle School. Lots of high level learning. It's evident of why our kids in school here in Ashe County do so well. Another thing on our beginning teacher of the year, she is right now currently, SpaceX invited her to go to Florida. She and Miss Cronk, they were offered an experience to see Inspiration 4 and the SpaceX facility in person in Florida. And they had the opportunity to attend a welcome reception for the SpaceX team. They did a meet and greet where they got to personally meet those who they Zoomed with earlier in the year. And if you guys remember, Ashe County Middle School back at the end of the year got to Zoom with SpaceX, and our students were fortunate. They've been featured on a documentary about SpaceX. It gives me chills just to think of a former science teacher and me really proud of a brand new teacher taking off for this opportunity. And she actually gets a private tour of Kennedy Space Center and the historic launch pad, go to a pre-launch SpaceX executive presentation, gets to view the Falcon 9, and then she gets to watch the launch from a special hangar. So I'm really proud of that opportunity for she and another teacher. And again, it happened quickly, and they are, it's an amazing opportunity for them. So Netflix Inspiration 4 series has been released, and there's a documentary that aired on Monday, and it really provides ACMS to join them on this journey because they were a part of their journey. So it'll be again on September today. So it happened again today. So Netflix was airing it today. So proud of Charlene Horton, and again, great teachers here in Ashe County, and that's just one piece of evidence. Tonight, also going on right now at the high school, is a college fair. So there are colleges live in the gym to answer student questions. So we're excited that students are really thinking about what's next. Coming up at the end of this month, we're going to have our blood drive. It's the first that we've hosted in 2 years. And our medical community still needs blood. And so they are, of course, doing it in the gym at the high school, following all of our COVID precautions. And of course, the blood drive with our nurses, they are held to a very high standard when it comes to those precautions. We started talking about Veterans Day events and how we can honor our veterans coming up in November. And so last year we did a video live out to our veteran community, but our ROTC wants to do more this year. So we're talking about what that can look like. No news yet. We also have next Friday, so a week from this Friday, on September 24th, we have a vaccine clinic. Information will be coming home to families tomorrow. So with parent permission, of course, students at the high school and at the middle school will have the opportunity to have, get the vaccine if, of course, with parent permission. But it makes the access to the vaccines easier on families if that's something that they choose. And so that will happen a week from Friday. This coming Monday, we are going to host a stakeholder event. So for teachers and parents and anybody who wants to join us with the ABC Collaborative. If you guys remember, this is the collaborative that I've been working with for the last year to help keep our schools open and to ensure that we have the most information that we can about COVID and what's going on and know how to deal with COVID as well. So a couple of the doctors that we've been working with that are some of the lead specialists across the country will be just giving some information, things like the vaccines, what's happening with the Delta variant, and do some Q&A. So if families have questions, we'll have an opportunity to answer some of them at that time. But more information, I'll be sending out some information on how to access that if families want to. And then, and then I just want to mention the vaccine clinic. It is only students 12 and older, and again, only with parent permission. And there are parent permission forms that must be signed. And then, Veterans Day event. And then we have a federal audit coming up. That's not exciting news, but it's something that we're doing. We have to do. Ashe County Schools, we've done well in our audits in the past. This one is interesting because it's happening in the middle of COVID and in the middle of, because we're an A, right? We are Ashe County Schools. We get one of the first visits. Where other schools, it's over a 3-year time period. And so we got lucky. We're drawn to go first. So Julie Taylor has been very busy in working with teams to make sure that everybody's informed of what needs to go into that audit. And of course, we have all of our evidences in place that, but it's every single title program, Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, any federal monies that we receive, they will be looking at evidence of that. So I will say that that's a positive thing. It's of course making sure that we have the appropriate documentation for all the different rules. And so those of you who saw the ESSER funds and saw how many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rules, well, this is very similar with the other type of funding. Between Amanda and Julie and other directors on the team. It's a lot of work that goes into ensuring that, but federal audit, so good thing. And then I did want to call your attention to, and everybody at home's attention to, we do have information on COVID posted weekly. And if you haven't seen it yet, most people I think have, but we do have the flow chart. I think most families have been referring to it on how the health department is making their quarantine decisions and rules. Those are all on our website, along with the data that we've been posting there weekly. And of course, I do want to say thank you to our nurses. They're pretty special people, and anyway, they work very, very hard to keep people safe, as well as do all of our teachers and employees. But our nurses have really, I'm glad we have them. So thank you to the board for ensuring that all of our schools have them too. I think that was all. I didn't forget anything, did I? Okay. I'm going to say the positive things first because some people are waiting till the end, and so
That's why you
switch it
ended
around. Let's make it positive first.
That's why we ended on a federal audit.
That's right. I'm sorry. That's true. It's going to be positive. That's right. Yeah.
Amanda's looking forward to that, I'm sure. All right. We'll continue down the agenda. Next, we've got public comments. So before we go into public comments, I will read our policy on public comment. In accordance with policy 2310, the board chairperson will recognize speakers in the order which they are signed in. Each speaker will receive 3 minutes to present their comments. However, the public comment session will not exceed a total of 30 minutes, except by a majority vote of the board. If a speaker is unable to present all of his or her information within the specified time limit, The speaker may provide the board with an additional information in written form. Please refrain from addressing any specific employees or student concerns as a part of this public comment. Concerns may be directed to district leadership as prescribed in policy 2310. Board members will not respond to individuals who address the board except to request clarification of points made by the presenter. The board chairperson has the authority to speak on behalf of the board and to refer concerns to administration. Except in cases of emergency, information received during presentations will not be acted upon at this time it is received. Also on that, I do have a clock up here for the 3 minutes. So as the speakers are speaking, when we get to kind of to the 1 minute mark, I'll kind of give you a one to kind of let you know we're kind of into that short end of everything. So we do have, according to here, we've got 3 signed up for public comment. Again, we'll go in order as they were signed in. First, we have Jessica Carter. Ms. Carter.
Is right here, okay?
That's fine.
As an educator myself, I understand the responsibility of the school. We're charged with providing safe spaces for children, nurturing their spirits, and developing 21st century learners. Schools are not charged to serve as an authority on any child's health and well-being, but rather just to safeguard these to the extent possible. It is my opinion that a mandate which forces all children in schools at all times to cover their mouths and noses with damp, sometimes soiled cloths is counter to this principle. A cornerstone of 21st century skills, again, a primary goal of our educational system, is the ability to be a critical consumer of information and an analytical thinker. To that end, I have spent a fair amount of time doing my own research on the benefits and risks of face coverings for healthy individuals. The literature is, at best, conflicting and confusing. Discussion around the ineffectiveness of masking would require much more time than I have to speak this evening, and I'm not here to discuss masks per se anyway. I don't take a stance on masks as they are a personal choice and a security measure for many during these uncertain times. What I am here to take a stance on is a mandate that requires children to cover their faces at all times unless they're eating or drinking in order to attend the public school system in our community, as this mandate effectively removes my right as a parent to determine what is best for my own child's health and well-being. I was told by your school nurse recently in a conversation about masking that I have to be the advocate for my child's health. And so my presence here tonight is a demonstration of that effort. For many, masks make sense. Some children, though, are suffering debilitating headaches, irregular heartbeats, and asthmatic episodes that their parents can directly connect to masking for hours and hours upon end now that school is back in session. Children already lack a voice in so many ways as they exist within systems developed by and managed by adults. And I believe that literally covering their mouths all day further silences them in a new and uncomfortable way. Our youngest elementary children usually don't have the social and emotional skills necessary to advocate for themselves and their own needs. And a mandate that requires at times physical discomfort and that may have potentially dangerous side effects for all of us is not something that I will silently stand by and watch our children endure. My simple ask is that the school system continue to provide clean spaces for children to gather, learn, and play, but that you would give parents back the autonomy to make their own decisions about their children's health and safety practices, in particular, whether or not they may choose to wear a face covering for the duration of the school day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Next, signed in for public comment, Mr. Drew Martin.
This okay over here? Or?
Hey, wherever you like.
Okay. I'll just stand right here. Keep my water. Good evening. My name is Drew Martin. I live in Jefferson with my wife Barbara. Together we raised our 3 children, all of whom attended Appalachian County School. We now also have a granddaughter in Lansing who made one day at 10. I'm here with you today to voice concern for the health of the children in our school system and to express my opinions regarding your actions as a board, which directly affect the psychological, social, and physical health of our kids. I'd like to think that we can all agree, unless it is absolutely necessary, covering a child's face is wrong. Masks do not stop the spread of viruses. They can't physically do it reliably, even when worn constantly and properly according to the strictest guidelines. We've seen evidence of this in our own schools so far this year. Moreover, data show that kids are not at risk from COVID any more than previous generations like ours had been from colds and the flu. What masks can do is harm our kids. A basic understanding of human emotional and social development should make it clear to us that separating young people, and especially very young children, from one another, putting unnatural distances and physical barriers such as face coverings on them to break normal social contact between them, will almost certainly have serious and lasting impact on every aspect of their health. So who are these masks for? Are we willing to accept that the risk of causing permanent damage to our next generations is the price we must pay for our fear of an illness against which millions have already developed natural immunity and millions more have chosen to receive vaccines? We still have the freedom to make personal choices regarding some of the risks we're willing to live with in the workplace and at home. Children, however, do not. And increasingly, neither do their parents. What's happened to parental rights and autonomy to choose? Some politicians seem to think these days are over. I'm here to say those individuals who would use this time of crisis to further erode our freedoms and use our children as political pawns will soon realize we've had enough. Their overreach will not be tolerated any longer. In closing, let me say, as a citizen, I commend each of you for your willingness to take on the duties and responsibilities of your position, and I thank you for your service. Having served on a number of boards myself, I appreciate how challenging your job can be. As a parent, grandparent, and someone who cares deeply about the health of our youngsters, those who depend on us completely to protect them, I urge you, please recognize the authority of parents, not politicians, to decide whether masks must be worn. Please do the right thing. Make masks optional, as you had earlier decided to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Next I've got on the agenda is Mr. Jeff Martin.
Well, my name is Jeff Martin, and they call me Grandpa, or Gramps, or Dad, in this case. I'm 80 years old, so I guess I can be considered a senior citizen. My 3 grandchildren from my son all grew up and went to school here in Ash County, all the way from kindergarten through K and through K-12, and did some Wilkes County extension there too. My concerns as an older person kind of are part of what they've been talking about with these masks. With all of the outside pressure from government, both state and national, for mandates and directives, I want to make a few points. First of all, and this is, I don't have the slightest idea what's going on in the schools right now as far as curriculum is concerned, but I do want to make some points because of my concerns. History. How do they know where the country should be headed if they aren't aware of where we've been? I want to see real history, how it happened, and not somebody's cleaned up history to only show the idealized version of the history. Nobody should graduate high school without having been taught about the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and how they relate to today's world and the end of each other. And this is the first country to ban slavery, and I'm not sure the kids know that. Science, real science, the study of the weather, the atmosphere, the elements, etc. Not phony science such as masks, which is more for controlling people than based on science.
One
Gender, there are only two. How you feel is not a gender. Social programs, to actually help prepare our youth for adulthood, not the 1619 project or critical race theory, which are meant to divide us into groups. I grew up when the country was still segregated. We have been trying to integrate all of us into a unified society ever since, and now our government is trying to separate us again. My only bias is against people who think they are smarter and somehow better than us. Me. I don't know if any of this new thinking has creeped into our school systems yet, but I and many others want to make sure it does not.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Those are the only three I had
Those are the
for
only
public
three that I
comments
had.
that were signed up. Those are the only three we had for public comment.
Those are the only three projects.
Next on the agenda, going on, we have the awards and recognitions.
So I'm going to postpone that until the next time, the awards and recognitions. We're going to have a few of them. And so to make sure that they can be here in person, we're going to do that. At the next meeting.
All right,
We should have a big one by that time.
Okay.
Fingers crossed.
all right, very good. Moving on into action items now, under number 6. First, under number 6, I have approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion, we approve the minutes as written.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any questions or changes to the minutes? Hearing nothing, all those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Next, we'll go into number 2, under action items, COVID-19 and masks.
So the state of North Carolina has directed boards in accordance with SL 2021-130, Section 10. The board must adopt a policy regarding the use of face coverings by employees and students for the 2021-22 school year. The policy will be reviewed each month, just as we had decided last month. And they are attached. So what you all see are the footnoted and clean versions. Obviously, the clean version is what you would adopt. You can amend them as written, but these are the ones that with the legalese that the School Boards Association recommends. There are 2. One of them, option A, and the other is option B. One of them is essentially with masks and the other one are without masks and with masks. So you can adopt these or any other ones that you want, but we have to revisit this every single month. And so this will be a new standard item moving forward. And once you adopt one, next, because it only is good until the next board meeting, you can choose to adopt a different one at the next meeting. And again, these are from the School Boards Association. They sent them following last week's decisions by our General Assembly.
Okay. So one option is optional, one option is mandated, required.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Not no mask.
Yes, not-
Optional.
Correct. Yes, I'm sorry.
But
Yes, you can
it's
choose,
easy.
there's a difference, you're right.
It's
You
easy.
can choose to wear a mask or choose not to wear a mask is one of them, and the other one would be they're mandated.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah,
we're
that's
not cutting
correct.
out under that. That's, I
My
just wanted to
apology.
clarify. Sorry.
my
No.
apology, yes.
Okay. So we've got these options here in discussion from the board or a motion from the board.
Do we need a motion before we talk about it? Okay.
And if you wanted, you could also, if you wanted to look at the other information that's below it, under all the COVID-19 items, you could do that as well.
Yeah.
That's-
Would that be better if we talk about the information first and then come back to the policy?
I've read it all.
Okay.
Maybe we'll talk about the information first, don't we? But I have read everything here.
Going through it.
Me too. I'm going to just give you the most recent data so you have it before you.
Thank you.
Yeah. You guys have had this piecemeal, but like every Friday, but not all the times. And I gave you more details on
I appreciate that.
this. Is the only one that gets posted because we can't post ones. I might tell who it is.
Okay, that makes sense.
So if you want to kind of explain what we're currently looking at as far as the board and the numbers here.
So I've been sending you all numbers each week as the nurses get them so that you would know how many COVID cases, how many are quarantined, both students and staff. And then we've been posting the total number the last 3 weeks online once we figured out how to get our dashboard up and working. So we've been posting the positive COVIDs and both students and staff each week. So this is broken down by school, but where you have one student or one staff member, we can't share that out because that would identify the student or staff member, and that would be a violation of HIPAA or FERPA, depending on who we're talking about. But we have been posting the total numbers, and so far since the week prior to school starting, we started there because some people started calling and saying, hey, my child's going to be quarantined next week because we have COVID, or quarantined in general. So this starts the week prior to school starting. Since then, we've had about 7% of our students this year that have had COVID or currently have COVID, which is of course because of the Delta variant, which is spreading a lot faster than the previous one, especially with children. We didn't have that many all of last year. So obviously different measures in place this year than last year, as far as capacities in schools, et cetera. But so far, this was through Friday, we've had 196 students that have had COVID and 17 adults that have had COVID. That's about 7% of our students and about 3.8% of our staff in general. And that's positive staff actually in our school buildings. I did not add in staff that are in like this office, and that would make that increase if we included central services from other leadership positions. Quarantines, that's the one that we have a lot of, unfortunately, and about 18% of our students have been quarantined. Most of these, believe it or not, have nothing to do with the school setting. They are coming in from outside because it's moving across families. The large chunk, however, that has been in the schools from a quarantine perspective came from our football team, which, as you all know, was a cluster. We later found out that there was non-masking going on during a rain delay. And, if you have an asymptomatic child and other kids are not being asymptomatic, that's the evidence that we've seen moving forward, in that setting. But that was a 2-hour period, not just 15 minutes. They were delayed for some time, so it didn't spread. And high school, you'll see, is higher than the others. There are more children there, but they're also I mean, I have a high school son myself. They like to hang out together. So a lot of this is happening outside of school. We do have some instances of spread inside the school, a couple through lunch, because that's when the kids are, I mean, they're most vulnerable, according to the CDC and the others that we take direction from. So it's been lunch or on buses, and the ones on buses we found, we've been spot checking mask compliance, and that's, unfortunately, that's where a lot of quarantines come from, because if you have your mask off, if you have your mask on, you're okay. If you have your mask off, that's when you end up getting quarantined, and they're kids that we're talking about, so we're gonna have some of that. So 501 students have been quarantined due to being a close contact or living with someone or with COVID. So about 22 of our staff members. Now, on top of that, and this is a number that's next to impossible to keep track of, but some are out for a day because they're getting tested and they come back because it's negative, and or they come back with a different diagnosis that it was their allergies. Some of them may be out because they're showing symptoms, but we learned that it's the flu, and flu is going around, as is strep throat right now. And then for the littlest ones, even RSV. So those are the numbers that you are looking at. And I put like I said, I put the percentage of the total population. We have our current enrollment approximately 450 staff members, approximately, if you include all of our bus drivers and custodians and teachers and administrators. And then from a student standpoint, our current enrollment is 2,795 students. Most of those are in in-person instruction.
Dr. Cox, it was mentioned that we had a grant for rapid test. Where are we on that grant?
Okay, so that's where pool testing is. We have two different things, so that's next on the list. It's all under COVID, kind of lump it all together so you know. The rapid test, yes, our nurses are in the process of being fit tested, and so that's for equipment, and they have to have appropriate equipment and stuff to be able to do that. So that is in process. And then the vendor that will come do them, so we can get the actual rapid test through the health department and administer those on site. However, the pool testing is something that can help us to be proactive. So, and there are some choices within that. That's what we shared before. Specifically with athletics, I want to keep the sports teams playing, and we spent 2 weeks without our football team playing because they were quarantined or had COVID, and that's just not healthy for our kids not to be playing. Bottom line is, short of stopping it, they're by nature going to be together. And again, we have as many health problems when kids are not together and doing things that they love as if they are. So again, we want to keep them playing, but the state has contracted with a vendor that will come in and do what's called pool testing. So essentially the kid with permission swabs, and it goes into a vial, and it's a group of 25, no more than 25. And so football team would be split up into 2 groups. And so if anyone shows positive in that group, they come back on Wednesday and test to see who the positive is. That way you can isolate it before they have a game and infect somebody else. That could have caught one of our kids that was asymptomatic. Clearly the kids were playing and they didn't know they had it. And then we had kids who got really sick. So this is a way that we could be proactive. And there are a couple of choices within there. So again, it's mainly to catch asymptomatic. So if you're symptomatic, we send you home. But again, if we were doing pool testing, you could potentially catch it beforehand, be proactive. Your quarantine starts earlier, you can get treatment earlier, you can be home earlier if we know about it, and hopefully save some of the spread. But there were a couple of choices in there, and again, it could be any one of those. Some I'm not as much of a fan of. But we could test all athletes as a requirement of play. We could test student athletes who are not vaccinated as a requirement of play. Or we could opt in testing student athletes who are not vaccinated and make everybody else wear a mask during, at all times. So those are some of the options within it that would help to make that pool testing work for our athletes. Our athletes are in small groups. They usually run in the same circles. That's why it's suggested in this setting. We also could do opt-in, and I wouldn't do it mandated for our classrooms, but opt-in testing for students in the classroom setting. You're not going to catch everybody, but again, parents would be able to choose. And what would happen, you come in Monday, they swab, put it in a pool, and if any of them come up positive, they'll come back on Wednesday and individually test so that they can isolate the virus to a certain classroom. So again, opt-in for that. Opt-in is not going to catch everybody, but at least it gives some choice in it. It might help us be proactive. Somebody else is sick and you're not positive and you just had a test, you might be able to go and say, hey, I think I might have strep instead, and go to your doctor and avoid being tested again. So it's easy, it's painless, and it's obviously free for us. We don't have to pay for any staff. They send somebody on site to do it for us. And it's a company out of Charlotte.
Other school systems doing this?
And some of them are visiting just like we are. So the entire state is eligible. Well, I'm going to say they had 68 school districts that were that had signed up to at least entertain it so far. There may be more than that, but I haven't had time to look at this, seeing exactly who has and who hasn't. Elkin City, I know last week their board voted to do it. So, and I can actually start to type it up, and it got last week, they voted today to screen all athletes, band members, and cheerleaders, regardless of vaccination status, effective late this month. Whenever they got it started, it's going to be late September, early October. They have the same vendor that's been offered to us, which is Ginkgo, to screen the students to use a pool method. Up to 25 students will go into one test kit. If one comes back positive, then they test them individually after that. So if nothing comes up positive, you move on, and that happens on a weekly basis. And again, they started off with student athletes as well, but the purpose, of course, was to help prevent students who are asymptomatic from spreading it to others who might end up getting sick. And that's kind of what's happening. You've got somebody who's asymptomatic, and you don't know you have it until you're sick, and that's how it's spread all around. So that's what they're doing, but I don't have information on any other current districts who have voted yay or nay, but it is an option, and it's a way we can perhaps be proactive. And my goal is to keep kids playing and keep kids safe and have some opportunities to maintain that. I know last year it was heartbreaking, and like I said, I've got a current sophomore who didn't get to play in the band. He's at App State. They got to play for the first time, and I have a current high school senior. And I remember senior year activities with Spencer being canceled. And then last year, some kids didn't get to play in their last basketball game because they were quarantined, or because they were positive. And if we can do something that avoids that for kids, I like to do that. And again, as many options as we have, out there. Like I said, I want to keep kids playing, and if that's going to help, and then if it doesn't, we can revisit it. But you know, it's an option that we have, and it's not going to cost us any money, just a couple minutes a time.
Did Coach Hampton weigh in on this?
So Coach Hampton, after you know, he's the football team, and as far as what the last time I talked to Coach Hampton, he said, "I'll do anything to keep playing."
Okay.
And so he's already bought masks. As far as all the pool testing, this is brand new as far as procedures and stuff. So they're going to have to take a deeper dive into what that actually looks like for the athletes at the school and procedures, you know, if you guys want to move forward with this. But he went ahead and bought the masks that went over the helmets. So similar to what we had last year. I don't think he wants to quarantine like he did last time. And we missed 2 home games. That was heartbreaking for some kids.
Okay.
So, you know, I can't speak for Coach Hampton as far as the details of this, because these are new, but we can pull him, we will pull him into the conversation later whenever when it comes to procedural about what happens next.
Aren't these rapid tests? The pool?
So it's a pool test. So what happens is that they will come in on a Monday morning and they will, the kids self-swab. So it's not somebody else running it up their nose. They put it into a vial. So all 25 go into one vial and it gets sent off to a lab. So these are like a PCR type test. But the pool testing, rather than doing everybody individually, because that's more, whatever the test is, it's more expensive. So they're not going to individually test on Monday. They'll individually test if anybody's positive in that pool, and that will be the PCR test. So there is a couple of day quarantine that might happen within that group, but you've already been exposed because you've already been exposed. So
how is that going to help the quarantine?
Yes.
I'm missing that point. If we have to wait 2 or 3 days.
because you will already have your test and it'll be your exposure would have been before from Monday. So you would already have the rapid test on you will have that new test on a Wednesday. So you wouldn't know that you were exposed on Monday because the kid's asymptomatic. So you're testing on, Jamie, you might want to pull in here because you've been on all those calls with me. But if you have for the pool testing, you have everyone that goes into one vial, right? And so it's going to be in a small contained group. So it'll be let's use a classroom instead of a sports team, that one classroom. So you know that that's your pool of people that are typically your close contact. It's usually not somewhere else because they're eating together, they're doing things together. So you've got that one classroom on Monday. If they were already symptomatic, we would have sent them home. They're not symptomatic, they're in school. But we see that asymptomatic kids are coming to school. Clearly, they're getting sick out and about. And this pool would, how do I say it, Jamie, help me on this.
So the pool testing is just to try to catch the students who are not having symptoms. And then when they would come back on Wednesday, that test would be, my understanding would be a rapid test. So we would find out that day who the positive student is. And so that helps us speed that process along because at that point, that child may not still be exhibiting any symptoms. Does that make sense?
The exposure date starts from Monday, not Wednesday. And so then they would go through the contact tracing at that point in time to see who was literally a close contact. So if they're all wearing masks, for example, and they're, apart from each other using the chart, and they haven't been eating lunch next to each other for 15 minutes or more. Sorry, I turned it over here. According to this, the flow chart that we have online that the health department and our nurses are using, to determine that. So if they were all masks and they weren't close contact, they don't have to quarantine. but you would already know who your positive is rather than waiting out even longer to get test results and sending them home, et cetera. So, but this allows us to identify that positive right away. So it is a rapid test, Jamie.
That is my understanding. And then if, because they were already showing as positive. So yeah, we would do rapid tests just on that group. So if we knew it was just, a small group of athletes, whichever team, whatever, and however that's divided up, it does help us because that's the piece we're missing right now. We can monitor and we can screen out students who are symptomatic. We can do close contacts, but right now what we are not able to do is identify students who may be actively carrying the virus, but not showing symptoms. So this is a way to help us do that. We also would like to eventually, with this testing pool, be able to do day of competition so that we're not infecting other teams around us as well. And I will say, I know that Watauga County is doing this and some other teams near us that we've already talked about that have opted in. And so the goal there is to not only catch our students while we're early, but so that we aren't quarantining another team that we compete against.
So it is a rapid test.
That's what she says. So I'm
The
sorry, I
rapid
didn't know
test.
that.
The Wednesday one is, so the one on Monday is just a pool, but they don't come back to do anything on Wednesday if there's not a positive that shows up.
So this is nothing extra placed on our nurses?
No, these the people doing the pool testing will be provided through the vendor. And we are still in the beginning stages of that, but all the materials are covered through the opt-in process that we've done. And any of the testing costs, materials, the person coming to do the pool testing will be provided as one of their employees.
Not costing us anything.
So are they going to pull this whole team out of class Monday morning at one time or one student at a
So
time?
we would have, that's where Brian Hampton would come into play as far as the procedure to ensure that they would, that we wouldn't be disrupting anything, but we'd have to work with the school.
Or about
on
time
the
out of class?
procedure.
So I
Yeah.
envision this being at the beginning of practice. I'm not saying that's how it would be, but I'm envisioning this being as just at the beginning of practice before you go out. We're going to do it on Monday and, and then you go out to practice. I don't envision this taking away from class time.
Is there parent consent, or is this just part of the process of, do they sign a consent form from parents?
There are consent forms available from parents. So, we could do an opt-in. If you wanted to, you could make it mandatory for the team. Like I said, there are some choices surrounding that you all would have. One of them would be that you test all athletes as a requirement of play. You don't have to be on that end of it. Another one, you could opt in, testing athletes who are not vaccinated, but require them to mask. You could do something in the middle of that is, testing at all athletes and have it opt in. Opt in are not going to be as effective because clearly you could miss someone in that pool. And most of the ones like Elgin's testing all athletes, not opt in. But there are some choices surrounding that. It's just a matter of trying to be proactive. We do have, we have COVID, we had 196 kids with COVID. It's still there. Most of them is coming from outside, but if we can prevent them, especially in high contact sports, in ways that will keep them playing as much as we can. We can't prevent everything, but I'm hoping that this could be a proactive measure so kids can continue to play. I don't want to see another senior who just learned that they played their last game last week and didn't get their senior hurrah. It's hard as a parent, and I know it's hard for the athletes too.
I'm personally not a fan of segregating between vaccinated and not vaccinated. I'll just put that out there. I don't.
I'm not
like
either. I'd
not.
rather do everybody or not.
Yeah, that's just me too.
That's,
Some legal complications there, I think, or ethical complications
I
there.
think
for
that's
me.
always been, I don't like that.
So definitely all
It's
or none.
dividing.
Definitely.
I'm a fan of all, I'm a fan of all or nothing myself. I just put that out there because those are some of the choices that other districts are entertaining.
So how would this affect indoor sports like volleyball? They're masking, correct? Supposed to be?
They're supposed to be they're supposed to be masking, yes. Volleyball, if you look at the spectrum of sports, is in the medium of the contact. So your football, your basketball are going to be your high contact, things like golf are down. Like, you know, I hope you're not that close to the golf swing, you might get hurt. You know, you're not going to be, you shouldn't be too close to somebody else if you're playing golf or an individual sport. But volleyball is considered one of those that is in between because generally you are spread out a little bit more. It's not 6 feet, but they're indoors so that they are masking at this point in time. And also from a ball, anyways, we could distinguish between sports. We could just test them all because you know they are student athletes and start there. That's that's up to you all.
I just love the easy decision.
That's why we give it to you.
Love them.
You know, one of the things that I think is really important to, you know, we do have choice. We do have some choices in this. None of this is easy, and I don't know what's right. And there's all kinds of information out there about you know the vaccine and masking and you know how quickly it spreads among children, and I know that it's spreading more among children because I've seen it. All of last year, we've had more kids with COVID since in the 5 weeks that we have been in school than all of last year combined. So if we can do something that's going to be proactive, it will not, nothing's 100%. It's not going to catch everybody. But again, I want to keep kids playing and I want to avoid some of the heartbreak that I saw last year, especially, and even the beginning of the year, with the football team, we had 18 cases, 14, 18, we had a lot of cases on the football team. And it goes quickly. And if we can prevent that from happening and stop kids from missing school and being sick, that's what I want to do.
Well, I've got a question, sorry. So I'm looking at the chart. So if you do this pool testing, and in the pool testing, by Wednesday, you find out there's a positive in the pot. All right, then they're going to single them out. But now they practice together Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, correct? Because you've not found out till Wednesday that there's a positive in there.
They haven't necessarily been in close contact. And so contact tracing would take place at that point in time. But if they've been practicing together, they don't know that another person has COVID because there's no symptoms there. Hopefully it is allowing them to be proactive and only the ones close contact, catch them early. Only the ones close contact to them would have to quarantine. And so if they've been following these other rules, then likely they're not going to be a close contact. But it would help us find that positive who's asymptomatic, start their quarantine right there. And then, because if not, it's not until they show symptoms that we are going, and they may never show symptoms. But they could be spreading the disease to other kids. And so high school kids, outside of school, they're on the back of somebody's pickup truck, they're hanging out and watching movies of a weekend, they're being kids. And I would expect them to be kids. I don't want to avoid all of that for them. But what I would like to do, if somebody is positive, be able to, let's remove it so we don't have 18 somebodies who are positive. And that's kind of what happened to us a couple weeks ago. Had we known, for that Friday night when they were all together, had we known that there was somebody in that group that was positive, we could have avoided a lot of quarantines. I think we had probably between the middle school and the high school football team, we had 60 kids that were, or more, that were quarantined. And part of that was under the old quarantine rules. I mean, there was a touch rule at that time that is no longer in play. But we would have still had quite a few quarantines as a result. We could avoid some of that. You're positive, you might not be hanging out on Friday night, you should be at home quarantining and then avoid some of that in the middle.
Dr. Cox, I do want to say that you may, Mr. Roten, find out earlier than Wednesday. So they would actually do the testing on Tuesday and find out if there's a positive in that pool. And if they were to find out there's a positive on the JV football team, let's say, then we would be notified. So then they would probably not practice that day. And then they would know that we're coming back, to do rapid tests or whatever on Wednesday for all of those students. But there's a possibility, if it happens, if the turnaround's quick enough, that they could be notified on Tuesday of a positive in that group. So it may not be exposure, at practice other than maybe Monday.
So would that team have to be out of school the next day till they can get rapid tested?
Well, the rapid test would be that day. Rapid test is immediate within a few minutes.
Well,
Josh, if
I'm-
they practice together
Yeah.
that afternoon,
They've
everybody's
been
together.
exposed Monday. That's what I'm getting. No matter when the test comes in, I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. And I'm not criticizing anything or anyone. It's hard because to me, by the time you get it, there's a 1 day, a 2 day. So if it was Tuesday and they tested Monday morning, but it came back Tuesday morning that there's a positive in there, then they practiced Monday night.
But
So-
you would already have a negative test. And what they're saying is that would meet the guidelines of not having a quarantine after that, because you know who the positive is. Unless you were a true close contact. And does that shorten the time, Jamie, at the end? And we can clarify it. But
So each one is so different, but again, Mr. Roten, these are students who would have been at school because they're not showing symptoms. So it really would hopefully close that gap down just a little bit so that we don't have someone there that's spreading the virus. Because if they're symptomatic, they're not going to be there. But I agree, yes, there is a potential for there to be exposures. And we wouldn't know who those students were or those athletes were until we get the rapid test back to, identify who the positive is. This is just to sort of say, there's COVID in this group of students. That's what that's designed to do. And I agree with you completely. It's taken me a long time to get my head wrapped around the benefit of pool testing. But we are hoping that this might catch some earlier. And then with the rapid that would follow, then we could start contact tracing immediately instead of waiting for a PCR to come back or 2 more days for symptoms to start and that kind of thing.
What's the point of the pool?
Why not just rapid test everybody on Monday?
That's my question. Why not just give them all rapid tests Monday?
Because those resources aren't all available, is my understanding. This pool testing is a very easy, quick, cheap way to do that. Rapid tests are not.
Doing it versus it's a student doing it. So it's on themselves versus somebody coming up and having to use that long thing that goes up to your brain.
Okay, that's what I needed to know.
I mean, this pool testing is a Q-tip and it goes into the vial and you got, and I think it's a real quick, easy, cheaper way to do that for your asymptomatic.
Okay.
Is the CDC still defining close contact as 15 minutes? And within, 6 feet or is it 3 feet?
It's 6
6
feet.
feet.
So basically, if they're practicing, they may not be close contact.
Correct.
Or if they're in a classroom with someone, they're not necessarily.
And touch
close
is not necessarily close contact anymore. It used to be when the football team was quarantined we were under old CDC guidelines, which is if you touch somebody, you slap somebody a high five, did a body bump in the middle of the game, that was considered close contact, and so you had to quarantine if that was a positive student you were contacted with. The next week, they changed those rules, and they said that's no longer close contact. You know, our rules change like that are given to us like every other day, it seems like. But they changed that, thankfully. Got a little bit more sense. So slapping a high five. I mean, I shook somebody's hand the other day, and I'm like, I shouldn't feel bad for shaking somebody's hand, right? You know, because before that would have been a close contact. Even though I like my hand sanitizer and I like to shake people's hands. Before that would have been close contact. Now, in a football game, if you do that, you've got to be there 15 minutes with that person. So, you know, your offensive line, if you were one-on-one with that person, you might be a close contact. So one of the other superintendents shared, because every one of us has watched film or video in the last year, trying to determine close contacts for something. And mentioned that even with her team, the closest she found to a close contact was 12 minutes. And of course, less students to quarantine at that time. And that's why we record games. You got to watch them to see the videos in the school bus for an hour-long bus ride. If you're wearing your masks, you're okay. We have some rules that help us out, but yeah, close contact is still that 15 minutes.
Well, I know we've been talking football, but I want to make it clear that this is any athletic team that might be affected. I know we're using football as an example, but we have a number of other teams that this could affect. So I don't want to put it all off on football because of an unfortunate incident that
Absolutely. I mean, we've had other teams that have been quarantined too, not this year. Teams. We've had people on teams, but not a full team like last year.
So it just happens to be football season.
Right, it's
And
fine.
cheerleading.
And cheerleading.
And soccer.
And band.
And band, yes, and all that.
And track.
Yeah.
Okay.
And some are more risk. I mean, your bands and the brass sections are, they're a little bit higher risk. My child plays the baritone. On top of each other.
Yeah, go ahead.
What do we
Yeah.
do? No, I don't have more comments.
I just, unrelated, but testing in general, because I was looking through some of my papers here. So this is a rapid test they would do if the pool was positive. They would do whatever that came back. All right. As far as if I was not an athlete, and does the school, if I was, we're not going to say asymptomatic, if I was showing symptoms, does the school accept a negative rapid test? I know they accept a positive rapid test. What about a negative?
So that depends on the situation again. So it depends on how, if you're testing because you're symptomatic, or if you're testing because you've been close contact to someone else. If you have been exposed to someone else and you're testing, you have to wait so many days, because otherwise it's very likely that you could get a wrong diagnosis, a false negative. So if you get a negative rapid test, depending on the situation, a lot of times we are requesting and asking that there be a PCR to follow up, especially if the child's been symptomatic. Or if we know they've been in contact with someone, or there's someone in the home, whatever. So I hate to say that, because I know that's not cut and dry, but it really does depend on the situation. We're working with families the best we can, absolutely. And we're consulting with the health department for each of those situations when I go, okay, well, wait a minute. Do we need a PCR in this case?
The one that I think the confusion is that we have not been accepting, and Jamie, correct me wrong, is the at-home negative.
Correct.
But we do accept an at-home positive.
Yeah, we accept an at-home positive typically, but we ask them to go back to the health department, because none of the numbers that you see on the health department dashboard have any at-home testing in them. So
So we treat a positive as a positive. I mean, that's kind of one of those, it's either there or it's not. However, yes, we are encouraging them to go be tested at some facility or the health department, because at that point, then it gets entered into a way that we can actually do the tracing and the close contacts. Because we are not medical providers, we don't get to put that in that way. So it has to come through the actual system.
and especially with our adults, we have to have the health department's quarantine orders in order to not dock their pay differently. So we can, if they're quarantined and have those orders from the health department, there is the infectious disease leave that they receive versus if not, we don't have the appropriate documentation that comes right out of the sick leave. So we do that to help our employees as well. So that because we have to keep all of those. And Roy has I think he's on his second notebook, but it's like this from different testing and stuff. And like I said, part of it's, red tape that we have, hoops that we have to jump through just to make sure our people are protected. I don't want somebody to have to use their leave because they've been quarantined by the health department. If we can avoid that, we want to avoid that.
It's just all on how you define a close contact, I guess.
Well, we've been, that's evolved. I mean, we've been under 3 different rules already this school year on what a close contact is. We're doing the best that we can. I mean, it's just dictated to us, and we just have to follow those rules. And of course, the health department is where those, where all of this is coming from, which they get it from DHHS and the CDC. So they're pretty much following these guidelines. We just put a little chart to, we have this chart here that hopefully makes it a little bit easier so families understand. And I'm just glad the touch roll was taken off, because if not, like every middle schooler should probably be quarantined if they come in contact with somebody.
Well, they were.
By nature. What's that?
They were at one
point in time,
this
football,
season.
yeah,
They were for high five.
yeah, they were. I mean, one body bump and they're out for how many other days?
The number
Crazy.
of quarantines really bother me as a former teacher and as a parent, because I know of some students who have yet to enter school because the way the quarantine rules go. I'm not sure if we can do something to keep that down. It would be, I think, helpful for our educational people. I mean, there is.
I know of a couple cases too, Diane.
If you're in a
heartbreaking.
family and then you have, what really gets me is that the kid who is positive gets to go back to school. Well, the sibling who is not tested positive has to stay out for 2 more weeks. And that to me seems very not fair, very weird that we're doing it that way. And I know it's been explained to me how that works, but at the same time, I'm going, okay, we're missing 3 weeks of school because my brother had COVID. Not because I'm sick. I'm not sick at all, but my brother has COVID, so I'm missing 3 weeks of school. If you add it up, because he can't go back to the 10th day, then there's 2 more weeks. So, that's a lot of time.
It's a tremendous amount of time, yes. And we have several families that are in that situation right now.
Yeah, I know.
I knew, I mean, I checked up one of them on Friday during one of my school visits, and that particular teacher had 6 kids out of her class, none for in the class, but all due to family outside. I don't know that all but one of them were negative themselves. They were just hanging out, waiting for now zooming into classes, and we're making every accommodation that we can. But it truly is heartbreaking what some of them are having to go through. I'm just glad we have some technology to at least be able to keep in touch, but it's not the same. We knew that. And our teachers are really doing a lot of great things for kids right now. I mean, they truly are.
So where we at? The burden of getting testing, the burden on the family of getting the test and showing the results, and I heard about that some as well. And I did check into that some today.
The health department is not open for testing all the time.
Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 10.
So that's a small window to get tested.
What, I'm just, to me, it's hard from, we're separating again between your school population, and your athletes.
Well, we don't have to. I mean, we could test everybody. We do it in the room. I just don't know what thinking of a place to start that where people had already been quarantined, that we can make a quick impact, that athletes tend to, you look at the state data and nationwide data, when kids are passing it along to each other, sports, you have more of a chance of passing it than in the regular population. That's the only reason why I suggested that as an easy starting place. You know, I don't know that we can, well, that's up Jamie and the nurses. Could we start on day one and do
I'm not saying do everybody.
everybody?
I just worry about that. I mean, what if you have a class that takes a field trip? They're all in the bus.
We're not taking any.
Well, they're on the bus, they're on the bus. too,
Well, we
from
can
school
now
too.
under the new toolkit.
Yeah,
They
they
just
can
take
do
field
field
trip.
trips.
Well,
But I mean, I'm saying, what's the difference?
my concern is at lunch.
Lunch.
I think we ought to test them in their lunch period because that's where it's being spread more besides the athletes.
Outside of athletics, lunch period is where kids are most vulnerable because they're talking, they're laughing, they're being kids, and
Well, I had to test my 23-month-old, my little girl. And you talk about something hard to stick a swab and hold her head down.
Yeah.
And stick a pencil up your nose. And I mean, I just have, to me, to give an example, Merle Fest is this weekend.
Yeah.
I could go to Merle Fest.
Yeah.
But Merle Fest is requiring proof of vaccination or a negative test. I'm fine with that. No at-home test though. I'm going to have to test my 3 children if my wife and I choose to go because they cannot get vaccinated. They're under 12, all 3. I'm not putting my children through sticking a swab up their nose just so I can hear some music. I'm sorry. I can turn the radio on and listen to it. But I mean, that's my choice. So this is my one lone board member opinion. Us doing this, we're putting another requirement on these, we're taking another option away from them. If you play sports, you're going to be tested. Therefore, I don't call it penalized, but therefore you're set apart from the other group.
Just
Yeah.
like vaccinated and unvaccinated.
This whole thing's a big divide, and that's just Josh's opinion.
But you have to look at it from the standpoint of they are the ones who are more likely to catch COVID because they're more exposed because they're not wearing masks on the field when they hit each other, run into each other.
Well, they've got masks on their helmets now.
Well, they're the ones that go over top the helmets now. That is correct, but
Yeah.
We haven't required those.
they're not.
So we're talking about 2 different things here, aren't we? Mask and then.
Right, this is then this, yeah. So I mean, this is,
Separate them out.
right, we're talking about vaccination, testing.
Right now.
Well, and again, those are just some of the options that other school districts and the company has, suggested. And we could do pool testing in the classroom. We can start off with the high school and middle school and just do it in their lunch period each day. I mean, we could do that. Lunch period is going to be similar to, first block or whenever, because you're still going to catch who the positive or negative is at that time. But like I said, it's if there's nobody with a positive, they don't go through the big old long thing that goes up to your brains. And I say that lovingly because that's how my child described it. He had to
What it is.
my Wyatt, at the time of governor's school, was not vaccinated. And so twice a week, he had to test because they were living on campus. And so he had to go through the swab twice a week. So, but it was not the pool testing, the little cotton, it was the real deal twice a week. So that's how he described it.
So will it be required for me to play ball?
As up to you, I don't know that.
So if we just-
that's
Do I
up to you.
have, I mean, do I,
If that's
the
the
cheer,
decision.
do I have to,
It'll be up to us.
another,
That's one of the 4
Mandate.
options on here.
I mean, and you,
3.
there are 3 options there. There are others that you could, any variation, it's really up to you all, but I didn't want to start even testing kids, even if it was all opt-in, and we had parent permission without a decision of the board. And without explaining, what some of those options really are out there and what other school districts are doing too. Jamie shared that, Watauga is opted in as well. I don't know what they've chosen as a part of that. I know what Elkin City did. But we could start as early as the 27th, is that correct, Jamie?
I've requested next Monday and they're telling me that I can't get those supplies and materials because they're so backlogged. So the shooting date is the 27th, we think. That's where we're aiming.
Who would have thought 2 years ago we wouldn't be talking about teaching? I know.
We've had more silence at the last few board meetings than I
Sorry.
want.
I mean, we're difficult here, but I feel like people need to know what's out there, and they say this will help us to be more proactive. Like I said, I just want kids to play, and I want kids to be in school.
I definitely don't agree that we need to make that as a requirement for them to play. I would love to see it optional, but I'd also like for the coaches to weigh in some on their decision. If a coach feels like it's important for their athletes, if they feel it's important for their athletes to be tested, maybe I hate to see it required by the coach, but the coach, he or she could say, I want you to do this. That would be my preference there, but I know that's not, again, we're off on another topic from where we started.
Does the coach have the authority to do that?
He can suggest it, and then if it's
Brian
optional.
Hampton would have had a lot of weight in here with me tonight.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Did anybody
Our new
get
athletic
any
director would have had a lot of weight in here with me tonight.
Yes.
What he would have advised me that would have had carried weight with me. On how serious, how his athletes feel, or how careful they're being, how careful they're not being, how.
They're a lot closer to them than we are. They know
May
what's
I
going on.
make a suggestion? We are going to have to schedule another board meeting pretty soon, right, Amanda? Unfortunately. And so, because this one may last that long. But why could we table this one until that other board meeting, so we can get some input from Coach Hampton? And I guess when I read this, I didn't realize what it entailed. I really did not, and I apologize for that.
Well, it's hard to explain until you actually have a discussion about it. Jamie and I sat on several different meetings, both with the company and listening to the state and what they're looking at as far as providing these options. And it hasn't been easy. I at first with the pool testing, I was like, wait a second here, we need pool testing. You're gonna put them on a vial. Why don't you just swab everybody? Like that was but I think it's because of the ease of the pool testing and the short turnaround that they promise as a part of that. So the results are on Tuesday. Wednesday, they come back and test that group of kids. And Jamie, I think the second test, the from what I remember, and maybe this is just my memory, is they would come in the morning on that Wednesday and test the kids. That way he would know right away and be able to isolate, contact trace. Because if not, you're right, it doesn't make sense for them to be in the general school, knowing that there's a positive in that group and just doing their thing. Because that would defeat the whole purpose.
So do I hear a motion that we're tabling this to later in September? For pool testing.
Here I go again. Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that we table pool testing for further discussion until the next board meeting. And I'm thinking at our financial board meeting that we need to schedule tonight.
Okay. Do I have a second to Ms. Eldred's motion?
Second.
Any other discussion or questions?
Well, and I thought, of course, I want to hear from Jamie as well at that time. There may be additional data that she has and that Dr. Cox has that they want to share between now and then. Now that we've had a discussion about it and some of these questions have come
And the
forward,
coaches, I think, would not-
very specific for
Okay.
Ashe
Would you like
County.
to hear from our nurses too?
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
And I would,
None of them were available tonight. One of them was teaching a class, or I would have had them here.
and I would really like to see if some other school systems, Jamie, are already implementing this, what their results are, and what maybe the potential issues they may have come across or positives they may have come across during this time.
I don't know.
I think most districts that have opted in are very much in the same boat we are, is that they've not got up and running because of the, it's just super backlogged at the state level. However, I will find out what their potential plans are. And I agree with you that we need to talk to our coaches. I think we just kind of wanted to know if this was going to be an option from you guys. So we will get that opinion from them and from the students and families, if we can get that before then.
I think personally, and that's why I made the motion, I need that extra information before I can really vote on this issue right tonight.
Well, and Diane, normally we would have put this under a discussion and tabled it, but there are, by chance, if you wanted to take action on it, there are some turnaround times at the state level that once they know, it takes them, like if they knew tonight, the 27th would be our first date that we could start. So whatever date it is, it pushes it back. So,
I understand that.
yeah, so, and that's absolutely fine.
I mean, we're looking at another week to me. So, I mean,
Probably.
and they'll probably be more backlogged then than they are now. So, I mean, if we're going to do no good.
It won't, I mean, even, that's, just about
More likely.
everything's been like that. We'll be fine.
Okay, so the motion on the
Thank you.
floor to table till the September financial meeting, and a second from Mr. McClure, I believe, or Miss Dr. Simmons. So all in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. All right, so we're going to back up here where we started. On here to the two policies proposed. Any discussion, questions, motions?
Are we on part A now?
We're under
Yes,
number 2. Yeah. Yeah. We're under number 2.
Well,
and this one you can't table.
No.
Sorry, that's what the state says. You
yeah,
can't
the
do it
state
every month.
is, never mind. We won't go into that, but,
And this will be a policy that will be visited at each board meeting from here on
Our
out
next board meeting will be first Monday
in October.
so that's not long. So, I'm seeing that our positive students are going down a little bit. I'm seeing that our quarantine students are going down a little bit. Positive staff's going down just a little bit, or holding its own with the quarantine. And to me, that's a good sign that we are doing something right. I know that there have been other school systems that have not been as fortunate as this. And I don't like these numbers. I do not like these numbers at all, especially the quarantine numbers. But I'm thinking our masks are essential in our classrooms because we can't distance. And it seems like the most positives that we have, or the most spread that we're having, is during the times that they are taking off their mask. And I would like for us to find out some creative solutions to separating that more than we have been. I know we think we're doing what we can, but I'm sure we can creatively find some different ways to spread students out during lunch. So I'm just going to jump right in there, and I'm going to make the motion that we adopt the mask again this month, with hopes that we can eventually, the rates will go down and that we can dismiss with those as soon as possible, as soon as the data.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion or questions?
My heart says one way, my mind says the other. It's a tough decision. And I think either way, we're going to be wrong in some instances.
Mhm.
Oh my God.
And for this, because being one of our bigger decisions, I will do a roll call vote as we did last time, and we'll do that the next month and following month on that. Starting on my right here, Dr. Simmons,
No.
Ms. Eldred,
Yes.
Mr. Roten, no. Ms. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. McClure.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-2. We will revisit this in October.
October 4th is the date. And I just wanted to point out, you can revisit this anytime. So, if you wanted to revisit it sooner at a different meeting, but
I feel like we've got to change sometime. I just don't feel like right now is the exact time. We've got to get rid of these masks or make them optional.
Well, according to the state and the statistics coming from the state, we are in a hotspot. We are in a red zone. Statistics show that children are becoming more susceptible to the Delta variant, and we need to do what we have to do to protect our children. And I imagine that any parent that wants to, as far as I know, Dr. Cox, can go online and look up the policy that we're talking about here, because it does have face coverings required, and then in the B section, it has face covering exceptions. The individuals exempted, children under the age of 2, individuals who cannot wear a face mask due to a medical or behavioral condition, children who are unable to wear the face mask covering safely. And so I think we're doing the right thing. I would not trade any one child's life and vote yes for taking off those masks, because according to all the things coming down from the CDC, from the WHO, from the Department of Health in Raleigh, masks do make a difference, a big difference in what happens in our school. And Nash County only has about 50% of its people vaccinated. And out of that 50%, most of the people in this county who have been vaccinated are 65 or older, and 65 or older, with the exception of me, are not working in our school system. So I have to commend our teachers, because I think 73% of those teachers have been vaccinated. But the bigger part of the people in Nash County have not been vaccinated. The bigger part of the people vaccinated are 65 or older. So I think COVID spreads. I think it spreads quickly. It's a dangerous, serious killer. I know the lady in next county over who had COVID, her lungs turned hard as a brick. Another lady had a hole in her lungs.
Mr.
I'm
Chairman.
sorry, we can't take any comments. I'm sorry, due to the board regulation.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to bring up another topic that's related to COVID. May I do so?
Okay.
I know our teachers are dealing very, very well with everything that has been happening. I'm concerned about their not having enough time to do the kinds of things that they need to be done during the school day. When you've got a revolving classroom with quarantined kids, there's a lot more contacts you have to make with our parents, there's a lot more issues that have to be dealt with. There's extra lesson preparation that has to be done. And I would like for us to consider changing our calendar. We do not have but one work day between now and Christmas, I believe, if I looked at it correctly. And I think that's scheduled for staff development. Is that true, Dr. Cox? I would like for us to consider 2 early release days between now and Christmas to give our teachers a chance just to be with no staff development, no meetings, except those they choose among themselves, like maybe PLCs or whatever, grade level meetings, to get some more time, because time, I think, is the enemy right now, is having enough time for everything. And we've experienced that from nurses to central office staff, all of these folks, that we might give them a little extra time to prep and to get their head above water. Plus, some of them, we have asked them to do staff development on their own time. There's not enough time in the school. I know an elementary school teacher's day to do 20-some minutes of staff development. There's not time to go to the bathroom most of the days and meet with the nurse and talk to the parents. So I'd like to have those early release days between now and Christmas for our teachers.
So if you would like to do that, we do have enough hours built in within our system that we can potentially carve that out. But I'd like to take it back because there are certain state regulations, right, that we have to follow to ensure that we have enough and when, but we can bring back to that next meeting an opportunity to look at the calendar for to see what that might look like.
I know that it's a pain to do that, but I also know that our calendar, when we set it, we were not expecting this amount of quarantine students this year. Delta wasn't even around then. So I just feel like that we need to adjust our calendar to help our teachers in this case to try to relieve some of their stress and the amount of workload that they have at this point.
We can bring back some options for you all to consider.
Okay, sounds good.
Anybody have anything else before we move forward from the board? It's okay with you all. We've been sitting here for almost 2 hours. I'm going to call a brief break as chair. We will convene back in here at about, we'll do about 5 till 8. So that'll get us roughly a 10-minute break on there. So Ms. Walker will be back on about 10 or about 5 till 8.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Cox, if you'll hit the mute key, please.
Amy, are you ready for us?
Oh, man.
Yes, we're ready.
Okay.
Thank you. So we're at 5.8 here. We'll continue through the agenda of action items. Under number 3, I have developmental day contract for the 2021-2022. I assume we'll have Ms. Richardson with us, maybe, or?
I believe Terry is on, but if not, these are funds made through the State Board of Education for special education related services to children who qualify. And these developmental day funds basically allow us to meet those needs. This contract is the same as it has been essentially year after year. So the prices change oftentimes, but other than that,
Based on the number of students.
it's based on the number of students, yes.
I'm seeing 8.
Do I have a motion to accept this contract?
Makes a motion, we accept the developmental day contract.
I'll second it.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Next, we have I think there's Terry. Sorry, Terry.
They passed it.
I was listening to the whole thing. I couldn't get my computer to upload the video and the voice. It was freezing up. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Dr. Cox, you did a great job explaining. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you for being on with us. Next, we've got the Learning Through Play lease. Dr.
So
Cox.
this is Learning Through Play has been in our building for many, many years now. And we have not, however, had a contract, a formal contract in place since 2015. So the last signed contract was in 2010 and it expired in 2015. And so there hasn't been an updated contract with them since then. And so we have been looking at this contract. Fred looked at this contract as well to make sure that it was updated. We worked with Terry Richardson and Jerry Baker to ensure, and Amanda Coldiron, as well as the Director of Learning Through Play, to make sure that the contract was reflective of our needs as a school system and keeping in mind that we do have a need for childcare within the community. So it did not stray too far from the original contract unless that is the desire of the board. But we did add the Exhibit A that looks at the leased premises and what they actually do use. We changed some language in here about custodial services and upkeep to make sure that those definitions were more clear than they were in the initial contract. Additionally, we felt like some of this was a little vague, but I wanted to provide to you a couple pieces of information. So one of them is the scholarship document. Our teachers, and I don't know how well aware they are, but if they have a child who is eligible under these ages for daycare, Learning Through Play offers them a slot at a reduced rate. And essentially, the rates are what is listed here. And and of course, the scholarship rate is what our teachers receive. Though I've been told that those rates have not increased since they started this lease agreement. So they've been holding steady for a long period of time. And learning through play does hold harmless. Oh, I can see about signing in. That's weird. Now I see what you're
Yeah.
saying. It's not pulling up. That's weird. Okay.
Did it tell you?
No, it's the same. It's going to a blank sign-in page. That's weird because it wasn't doing that.
Looking at scholarships.
So the link
I got that.
is the saving, no, the link is the savings to employees. So I am going to, that was a link that Jerry had provided.
It
Jerry,
pulled up on, it pulled up on.
did it pull up on yours? Okay.
How much per week they're saying?
Okay.
0 to 23 months, 2 years, 3 to 4, 5 years in school age.
No, actually, it was a different document that looked at specifically how many teachers that we currently have enrolled
Oh, I see.
at Learning Through Play and the actual
Yeah.
prices. And I apologize,
It's a Google sheet.
it is a Google sheet, and next time I'll just put it in as a regular, and Jerry saved the day. So I'm gonna forward this to each of you right now. But Jerry, just copy this and I'll make sure that it gets reposted in the system. We currently, as of when we put this in here, had 13 children who are attending, who are our employees' children who are attending Learning Through Play. And I don't have the ages of those children specifically. Last year when we started the talks, we had 19 children there. Of course, we have, it varies by year. But you can see that if 13 children were all 0 to 23 months, the cost of that savings to our employees is right around $43,000. So looking at the utilities and stuff that Learning Through Play plays for that facility, they do pay a proportion based on the number of rooms that they occupy. They pay for their facilities as well. And then
That's for the whole year, correct?
that's for the whole year, correct, because they are 12 months year round. And our employees, if they send their children to Learning Through Play during the summer months and holidays, they are not forced to pay. They hold their spot for our employees. So when you look at it, the ones who do send their children there are offered an additional benefit. They're offered an additional benefit. Now, if we look at, anyway, I don't know what other questions you guys have or might have about the contract, but I wanted to point out those documents to you.
Questions? Now, I notice next is Learning Through Play contract for meals. So they do buy meals off the school.
They do,
Okay.
they do. So with food services contracts through Learning Through Play through Mountain View Elementary School. So their cafeteria staff does serve the meals at Learning Through Play. And from a Learning Through this as well, rather than having a 5-year contract, we went to a yearly contract. That way we can revisit this each year to make sure, like we do all of our others, we don't have contracts that last 5 years.
Would there be an opportunity for another daycare if one so chose to go to this facility under this same kind of lease?
I don't think we have the capacity in that facility for an additional daycare to go in there. I think there are a couple of open rooms, but I don't know about their outfitting and what that would look like. or a couple of unused rooms too, I think. Terry might know the answer to that if she's still on.
Yes, I'm still here. We have had Karen Young, our regional consultant in our building, to see how even Ashe County could expand. We have one room that Ashe County schools could expand and provide a additional program, but that is it for our facility that meets the qualifications to be able to move forward with any type of childcare.
I noticed that we don't have an ending date on this lease. What was your thinking on that? How long?
1 year. I would, the reason why there's no ending date on there is because I think that in the past, it's been a 5-year period. I would like to do this every year. I think that's more prudent than waiting for, 5 years at a time. And anyway, I just think that that's better in general. There are, different options. You get $8 for their rent, which, but they do, we do get it back as far as our teachers are concerned. And oftentimes our younger teachers are the ones that are having children. And they also, some of the least paid teachers. So, it's a definite benefit for them. And they do hold those open spots. When you look at what the county charges for their buildings, it's about $7.62, I want to say, and I should have written it down, per square foot. And so that's roughly under $70,000. But when you start adding up utilities, and that's including utilities. So, when you start adding up benefit to teacher plus what they're paying in utilities, there's not a whole lot of difference because we could have, 20 teachers tomorrow versus the 13 we currently have. Last year when we exported, it was 19. Did I talk in a circle? That makes sense. Okay.
Terry, did you have more input?
I did have input, yes.
Okay.
Oh, no, she was talking about from the lease.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I was just wondering if you had something else you wanted to tell us.
That I do think that this was looked at very carefully and it took time to look at everything, and that Dr. Cox had been over into the facility many, many times to investigate and to point out things that needed to be taken care of, and to really understand the process of the child care site versus our Ashe County school site. So I appreciate her diligence and working through this process and developing a solid contract.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion, we approve the learning through play lease.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any other questions or discussion?
I like the fact that we can give our younger teachers a break with the daycare because it can be quite expensive. I remember those days.
Anything else? All those in favor of the lease, raise your hand. All right, motion carries. Next, we've got the food lease for the meal services for learning through play.
So this is essentially, there's Martha, good.
Mr. Chairman and Board, we are requesting that approval of the contract to provide meals for learning through play daycare for the 21-22 school year.
Anybody have any questions on the contract for meal services? I'll entertain a motion.
So I have a question. Is the same thing delivered to the early learning center that's served at Mountain View, well, served anywhere? It's the same meal that goes to the Ashe over there that's served at the school, Martha?
It is supposed to be. That is our menu. Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yep.
There are some meals that for learning through play that are altered a little bit, such as I know we do not serve hot dogs. There are certain things for younger children that are not served to learning through play, but essentially pre-K meals should be the same.
Mountain View does a great job, and Martha with the service of our meals, and work very closely with our health inspector every year. And matter of fact, we just got inspected today, and they work very closely with making sure that we meet all those requirements for the health inspection and delivery of meals, and we greatly appreciate it.
Can't beat neat action.
That's exactly right.
I make a motion that we pass the contract for the food service,
Meal
the
service.
the food service contract.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Now, we've got to schedule another day for a board budget work session, as well as a couple other items added to on there. And there are some dates on the agenda.
Well, I'm gonna be the one that throws a kink in it. I'll be gone Monday, September the 27th. And I cannot meet September the 16th. So Friday, the 24th is about it for me.
When are you gonna be gone, Diane?
I'm going to the beach,
Yeah.
the 26th.
26.
And we'll be gone that whole week. And I
So-
have something already scheduled for Thursday, the 16th, that I cannot reschedule. That morning, there's a possibility I might can meet that afternoon. I'm just not sure how long it will take. Dr. Cox, could you do the afternoon that day? Which one? 16th? 16th?
I can't,
Yeah, I mean, anytime on the 16th.
I can't the 16th. Well, I can cancel the appointment, but right now I've got a doctor's appointment.
So we're looking at the 24th.
I'm
20.
thinking that we need at least to the 24th to get some of this other stuff that we were going to look at again.
Amanda, what's the 22nd in the afternoon look like for you? That was one we didn't consider on there. I don't know if that's something that works now. If it doesn't work for you. Okay.
Yeah, I have an appointment in Charlotte that can't be changed. Doctor's appointment.
And really the 24th, we could potentially do just about any time. We could start at 9 a.m. if you wanted on that day. I don't know which you all.
It might be, so we can start anytime. We might need
Start
some
like
more
9
time.
a.m. and get it over with.
I'll do it during the day instead of the evening.
The only problem with having it as late as the 24th is I may have to bring the budget resolution the day of October 4th instead of having it in the packet that week, because it's a beast.
Right. Which
And
is
we've done
better,
that before.
which is better than doing the 27th.
Right, absolutely.
Right.
The earlier is the better for her.
It is very similar, we don't have a state budget. We're not gonna be able to do anything term expense. All we're gonna be doing is approving capital outlay projects. Until we know what the state's doing, I can't feel good about committing any more term expense funds for anything.
So 24th. So you said anytime, it says on here after 2.
Yeah,
So
we can do it anytime.
We can do anytime.
I don't even know why we put up the 2 on that one. So if you wanted to like start at 9 and
And whenever, hopefully before.
hopefully before and get it over with, that way it's
I really only need about an hour, I don't know what you're gonna need for everything. else.
Okay. Let's just start it. Let's plan to start at 9 then
Okay,
on the
let's do that.
24th.
That's
That's good.
And that'll give me time to do other things that I can.
We're out here at 12.
We should be able to get out of here fairly
I'll
quickly.
give you Josh a hard time.
Uh,
If you're not out here at 12, we'll feed you.
That works too.
Nothing gets seating, but I'd rather be out here at 12.
Yeah. Okay.
Places are closing down.
So budget work session date, the 24th, starting at 9. Just here at the end. Okay. We don't need a motion for
Restaurants
that.
closed down, COVID, open for
You- you-
COVID. I'm afraid they didn't know.
And that actually gives us more time to bring back the
Wow.
calendar and look at the pool testing specifically for the pool testing. So now that I know what questions you will have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, maybe Brian can speak with the other coaches and see what they're.
Yeah. We can-
I know he will.
So next, we've got on the agenda, School Nurse Funding Initiative, the contract approval for the 2021-22 year.
This is our standard school nurse contract that we do every year. It's $150,000 and it helps support our 3 nurses at the high school, Blue Ridge and Westwood.
Anybody have any questions for Ms. Coldiron? Entertain a motion.
Make the motion, we approve the contract for school nursing services.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Next, we've got the Jody Provident Counseling Services Contract. I believe I see Ms. Little's name. There you are.
Good evening again, board. I'm actually the next couple of things. So the first thing I'm gonna come to you with is we have been partnering with Jody Providence Counseling Services in our school since about 2015. And prior to this year, what that has looked like is students were able to receive mental health services and therapy during the school day. That was a huge benefit for families, so they wouldn't have to worry about transportation, and children were able to attend their sessions much more frequently and consistency, which was a huge benefit. Through some funding that we're receiving through ESSER funds and other mental health initiative monies, we are looking to be able to contract with her once again in a little bit of a different way. What we're hoping to do and looking to do is be able to provide some more assistance in our elementary schools. You had looked at the proposed contract last month. And in our elementary schools, there would be a person that would serve them for half of the school day in each elementary for about 37.5 hours weekly total between the 3 therapists. And the counseling agency would be able to bill private insurance or Medicaid, and then any funds that are not collected that way, we would be able, they could bill us for, so that this is no cost to our families. And our students would be able to have somebody consistently there in the building every day of the week for half the day. So it should open up a lot of opportunity for students to receive mental health that have not currently been able to do that. Last year we would have maybe a therapist there for part of the day, 1 day a week at each elementary school. So this would give us someone there half the day every day. And then with our Top Dog Clinic and our Ask Center serving our high school and middle school, this way we have some on-site mental health services for all of our students.
Any questions for Ms. Little? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that we approve the Jody Providence Counseling Services contract.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any other questions, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Next, we've got the annual contract for Appalachian State University for the Assessment Support and Counseling Center. I'm not good on acronyms. I had to look it up.
Yeah, sorry about that. We get very accustomed to that. So this is for our Ask Center that operates out of Ashe County High School. This is a contract that we've had going. I think this is the 10th year that they have been working through our high school. And we have a unique partnership the last 2 years. This is the 3rd year with our U.S. Department of Ed mental health grant. But this is the piece that allows those students to be able to come in, practicum and graduate and doctoral students to come in and serve our students to gain their hours of experience while also being supervised by Dr. Kurt Michael. And so that's how this all began, and we're growing that with our mental health grant. But this is our initial contract to allow them to serve our students and to collect data, you know, just research data with that and help grow their program. But our students receive the benefit of getting those counseling services. And this contract has not changed from last year. And Mr. Johnson has reviewed these contracts as well.
Any questions? Entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that we accept the annual contract with the Appalachian State University for our ASC Center.
All right,
Second motion.
All right, thank you. Motion in the second. Any other questions or discussion?
On the terms of agreement, I assume that date will change.
Amanda, do you know the answer to that?
It says July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021.
We typically put the contract just into place for the fiscal year, but we can have that be the day that it's signed. There's a place on the back for where it's signed.
Here is
Jamie, the years need updated. I didn't catch it either.
Oh, got it.
2020, yes, it should be.
I'm sorry. I have a different one in front of me. That's, I think, correct. So sorry. Yes, we will get that corrected.
All right, any other questions? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Motion carries. All right, mental health training plan.
Okay, so the state board put into effect a policy last year. It was the school health. It was a school health policy that required all public school units to develop a school-based mental health training plan that would also include suicide risk referral protocol. And so I've worked extensively over the last about year about how this needed to look and how we were going to get our staff trained. The very first year, this year, it requires 6 hours of training on mental health and suicide protocol. Every year following that, every other year that you have to do 2 years. And so last year we had two hours of training on sex trafficking and child abuse. And that will be continuing every other year. But for this one, we had to have very specific things outlined. And so in consulting with other districts and how they were meeting this need, we worried about having teachers attend all day trainings and being out of class and the cost of substitutes. And so other districts that I was working with had been utilizing something called vector solutions. And so we went to, I went to Amanda and Dr. Cox, and we looked at some things that could help us do. There are certain trainings that have to happen each year, such as bloodborne pathogens and school safety videos and all of those things, OSHA kind of stuff, that this platform also addresses. And they were able to, they have customized a North Carolina plan just to meet this exact legislation. And so we've purchased this training module session so that all staff members will do this year. It does require 6 hours, but these courses are 20 minutes-ish to most of them are about 30 minutes. And they are modules that they can go through and finish them whenever they have an opportunity. They can meet as a team and do that. And we felt like this was the best way to do that without requiring our teachers to have additional time out of the classroom. And it can be completed, whenever they have an opportunity to do that. And so if you'll look at the plan, this is sort of how we've paced it out. And it breaks it down as well as the general educators, the ones they have to go through and complete, instructional support, student services staff. Later on, when Mr. Putman has new hires, things that they will have to complete. And I did try to keep it as concise as I could so that most of it was pretty basic and similar. But then on over, you'll see for the year 2022-23, as well as 23-24, the 2 hours that would be required there with child abuse prevention or child sex abuse prevention, and then human trafficking.
These are required. This is not something we can get around. We just try to make it as easy as possible on the staff, on all of us, because we all have to do it.
Isn't there a requirement that it has to be done by December 31st?
So there are requirements. It depends on the actual training itself that of which things have to be done. That is correct. I don't know which ones are what dates.
We're going to have that reflected for the teachers within the module, which ones are due first.
So for example, I got a reminder that I have an upcoming date on the very first bloodborne pathogen. I got an email reminder just this week to complete that particular training. So I don't know whether a Vector does it with all of the different trainings that we have input in for the different staff members. I'm assuming I wasn't special in getting that delinquent reminder. I'm not delinquent yet. But it does send reminders in the system, which I appreciated that they're up-to-date videos, and then you can do them at your own pace, or you can sit with your team and do it. So you don't have to bring everybody into one space and sit there for 2 hours. And to me, this is a lot better to get it done when you can.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Well, why is this a motion? Because this is already happening. This is already in.
Because
The training plan is what you're.
the state requires.
We're asking for you to approve the training plan.
Are the dates negotiable? I know probably the bloodborne pathogens are not, because that's a state level thing that has to be done.
All of these are state level, aren't they, Jane?
Correct,
Because of the-
these are all required now. Yes.
But they all need to be completed by December 31st. There's no leeway after Christmas.
No, this plan goes over 4 years.
Oh, with
The
this
plan
one,
that we're
right?
approving.
The,
goes
Okay.
over.
the 6 hours has to be completed during this school year. There are certain pieces and parts of that that are going to be due by December 31st, but not the full 6 hours. And so this plan is just having you guys, there are several different methods to have this completed, but this is the way that we thought would be the most time efficient and effective for our staff.
Gotcha.
Through the Vector Solutions, yours.
Correct.
Okay.
I like the idea. I was just wondering.
I make the motion, we approve the mental health training plan.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Now we've got safety assessment and response policy.
Okay, so
On Jamie's behalf, real quick, this is bragging on Jamie. Jamie put a lot of time into this policy, and it's brand new, and same way with the plan, and she and her team. But even Fred, when he looked at this policy, said, "Where did you get this? This is really well done." Well, Jamie did it, so I'll just brag on that Fred was very impressed.
Well, I thought it was just a plan that was provided.
No.
So yes, it looks great, Jamie. It does. That's why I said, why are we
Yeah, no, it's
voting? It looks like it's already that we just purchased it. So yeah, kudos to you.
thank you. Thank you. So the safety assessment and response policy, this is as a result of our U.S. Department of Justice grant that we received for school safety and threat assessments. So as a portion of that grant, this was one of our goals, is to have a very specific safety assessment response policy and how we deal with those safety issues when they come up, whether it's physical safety or mental health safety, safety of students, safety of others. And so one of the portions that we've been looking at and working on really hard is this policy and how we're going to do this. We want it to be very consistent across the district so that all of these situations are handled very similarly so that we don't have gray areas. We want all of our students to have the same type of processes and procedures in place and the same type of safety afforded them. So I had no idea if this is how you write policy or not, but we went through and I just wanted it to be very clear as to what needs to happen and who needs to be involved. And so I'm asking that you not only look at it, but if it's possible to go ahead and approve, because we are moving forward with our plans with our safety grant. And we would love to start moving into that. So I'm asking that you not only look at it, but hopefully approve unless you need it to be able to sit or have questions about it.
And Fred did look at this policy. And again, he was the one who was complimenting Jamie on the actual policy itself.
Do we have a mandate that we have 30 days to review a policy?
So it's,
It's been a procedure.
It's been a procedure.
Yeah.
Policies are those state policies.
The state policy, so if it's a
We have
local
that
policy,
correct.
we do not have to spend the same amount of time. Okay, I just want to make sure. So I make the motion, we approve this very well-written safety assessment policy.
I second the motion.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting, raise your hand. Motion carries.
This is one I hope we don't have to use very much.
I agree. Thank
Or
you
you'll
very
get
much.
Policies.
All right, next we're into personnel. See Mr. Putman there.
Good evening, board. I hope everyone's doing okay. I've got the personnel agenda, and then today I did upload an addendum because we've had a couple of leaves that came up and we had one substitute teacher to add. And since our schools are in need of substitute teachers, I wanted to add that as quick as I could.
Any questions for Mr. Putman? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the personnel report.
Mr. Roten, before, I'm sorry, I neglected to mention one thing. I want to mention this before y'all vote. We have been doing COVID-19 lead tracer interviews for the county. And during as you guys can see with the numbers in the district going up, especially at the high school with the amount of quarantines and such, Miss Goss is really, she's undertaking a whole lot of the COVID burden right now. And so we did write down there under seeking prior approval to add an additional ESSER funded nurse there at the high school, especially if we're talking about potentially doing testing on site for sports. And there's a lot of things there that she's doing, and she's really carrying I guess the bulk of a lot of the contact tracing right now. And since we have the ESSER funds, it wouldn't cost the district really anything because it's grant funded. We were wanting to request an additional person, not just the contact tracer to kind of oversee everything, but a person actually on site as well down at the high school to assist Ms. Goss. So I wanted to bring that up. I did put it down under seeking prior approval. Just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of that.
And we did conduct interviews for the original, and we had excellent candidates. We had 4 that we could hire. So if anybody was looking for nurses, I've got colleagues across the state are begging for them, and we had some really strong candidates. So.
All right.
And of course, these would be these 2 positions would not be it'd be tied to the ESSER funds, so there is a limit on them, and hopefully we won't need them too much, for more than a couple of years.
So this employment would be for a year at a time?
Yes, ma'am. This would run through this school year, and then we've conveyed to the candidates that we would reevaluate at the end of this school year. And if we did not need the contact tracing assistance, then these positions would go away.
Thanks, Lauren.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve personnel?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the recommendation that we approve the personnel agenda as presented to us by Mr. Putnam.
Do I have a second to the motion?
I second the motion.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we've got beginning teacher support program, and it's a funding approval.
Yes, so the beginning teacher support program, we have that money that comes to support that program comes out of Title II funding. And last year, the district adopted the position that we wanted to continue to use at a greater level ASU's coaching and support for all beginning teachers, not just 5 or 6. And so last year we made our greatest commitment to that. And I think it was an overwhelming success. I would say around 50% plus of our beginning teachers cited in a survey toward the end of last year that they felt that the new teacher support coaching that's offered by Betsy Rosenbaum and Karen Walker was the best support that they received as a beginning teacher. Others cited, also school level support was a big help. But being that the amount of money that this cost is over $25,000, we're seeking board approval to use it. So currently, Gear Up's going to pay for 4 of our beginning teachers at a rate of $8,800 for this coaching. So we're partnering with them. And then out of our Title II budget, we're going to pay $39,600 for new teacher support. This is a tool that out of Title II comes for recruitment and retention of new teachers. And you can definitely tell the difference from year 1 to 3 with people who've had this kind of coaching. And so I'd like to ask that the board approve our use of Title II funds for the new teacher support program.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Putnam?
Do you feel like this is helping in retention, Mr. Putnam?
Excuse me?
Do you feel like this is helping in teacher retention?
Absolutely, I do. I really feel like it. I know that I can cite several individual examples of beginning teachers who, after it used to be just after year 1, they might get coaching from ASU's coaches in their first year. And in that second year, we typically took it away and gave it to new teachers, just beginning year 1, level 1 teachers. But I've had several that have told me, I don't want to lose Betsy Rosenbaum. I don't want to lose Karen Walker. They're very energetic. They're a pick-me-up. And if you're around either 2 of those ladies, you can definitely see that they have all the qualities and traits that you would want every teacher to kind of have at their disposal. They're very resourceful. They send out newsletters every month. They meet with them every week, give in-person and virtual support, send them all kinds of articles, artifacts, help them with classroom strategies. So I think that it gives an opportunity for every single one of our teachers not only to receive school level support and support from their principal and AP and curriculum staff and from us here at the district office, but also from high-level coaches that this is what they do for a living. They coach new teachers, so they do it at a much higher level than I could do it.
I remember their presentation a couple of years ago, I guess it was, and I was very impressed. And I think this is a very valuable resource that we're using here. So I make the motion, we approve this, what's it called, beginning teacher support program.
Yes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any other questions or discussion?
How do we evaluate? What is the evaluation process of the program though? Roy, where's the data points here? I agree. Betsy is a rock star, but what are our data points? Is there,
Yeah, so that's a great question. So they send us an annual report that tells us how many coaching visits that they've had and to what specific types of professional development, whether it be working with EC students, classroom management, differentiating in the classroom, universal design training. So there's a lot of, there's about 15 to 20 different indicators of types of trainings. And some of them are more specific to just individuals. And then some you can see they occur more often than not. Like I'd say for beginning teachers, classroom management's a big one. That's one of the hardest things to learn. So we do get data points there. And then I also check in with new teachers and ask, how's the support coming from ASU's new teacher support? And when I sent the survey out last year, and asked, is this something that you would recommend continuing? Overwhelmingly, the response from the new teachers was yes. They felt like it was a valuable resource. The only feedback on the opposite end was there was a few teachers in the third year that felt like by the third year they might not need as much support. I would beg to differ. I think that I'd take as much support as I can get for as long as I could get. But I do understand the differences of opinion there. But I think that overall we assess it with actual data points, like how many contacts, how many hours of contact, what the exact types of training were. The teachers get to go participate in the Beginning Teacher Summit that's covered in the cost of this. So they're constantly getting resources that are helpful. And then I'm attached to the emails that go out to the groups, so I can see with my own eyes what's going on with the program. Julie Taylor and I kind of evaluate the program each year when we're going through Title II. And if I felt like the program was no longer successful, we'll put that money into something else where I think we could get more bang for our buck. But right now, I've been very impressed. I don't have any complaints with it. So I feel like overall, it's a good thing for our new teachers.
Thank you, Roy. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? I've got a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Motion carries. All right, next we've got Walden University MOU.
This is a very easy one. This is just Walden University is another university that we're trying to partner with so that we can try our very best to recruit student teachers and recruit potential teachers. We're very fortunate here, as most districts are really struggling to find qualified teachers. In Ashe County, we're very blessed. We have great teachers. And I think that by and large, that's been a strong partnership with ASU. In the past year, we've added Western Carolina. We've added North Carolina A&T, Lee's McRae, Liberty University, I think East Carolina University, and UNC Charlotte. And now Walden's just another one that we had a request from them for a student intern to come in. So I told them we'd have to have an MOU in place. I sent this to Board Attorney Fred Johnson, and he approved the MOU with a little bit of negotiation back and forth with him on the terminology. So I feel like all we need is approval, and then we'll have another partnership with another university.
Question, Roy. Of course, I have a question, Roy. I'm sorry.
Sure. No.
I know Walden has been known as it's an online institution. How will they be supervised by Walden, or will they be doing all of that electronically or through artifacts or some kind of process there?
I would think that since it's an online university, most of that communication will be online. Like with ASU, they have some in-person contacts and they do some remote contacts. I would believe that Walden would probably be mostly remote. They have their people on their side that kind of oversee the post-secondary education side of things. And then at the school side, like for our purposes, we have a teacher or an intern coming in at one of our elementary schools, and that person is overseen directly by their clinical educator, just like ASU would require. And so they do have to go through the criminal background check process. They do have to go through the drug screening process, just like any other student would. And so I feel like it'll probably be more similar than different, but that was one of my concerns as well when I was approached by Walden. However, the teacher that's going to be the clinical educator knew the system, knew the student in question, and felt very comfortable with allowing that student per your approval to come in and be a part of the classroom.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion to accept the MOU.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that we accept the MOU from Walden University.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other questions or discussion?
I have one more thing that I just thought of. Is this just a 1-year MOU? Because I'd like to see how this works before we approve something for more than 1 year.
Correct. So currently, this is on the page 1 of 7. The agreement shall commence on August 30th, 2021, which of course, we're going to have to back that date up and continue for a period of 5 years. However, as the board, you do have the jurisdiction here to say we want to do a 1-year trial. And all that is me just changing that date per your permission.
I would like to see how this works with an online institution just for 1 year. And if everything goes great, wonderful, we're not locked in for 5 years. If we go for 5 years, we may be stuck with something we might not know about at this point.
That makes sense.
Would you like to change your motion?
Okay, let me look at this thing. I'll make the motion that we accept the MOU from Walton University for 1 year and then review it at the end of that year.
Second. All right. All those in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Announcements and information. I don't think we have anything.
No, I moved that to the front.
Right.
I
It's
just,
just duplicate.
we will have some more information out on the new vaccine clinic and the opportunity for parents to learn more about COVID in general and what the latest research is out there on Monday. And so that information will be going out to families in the next 2 days. And then we've got a football game on Friday, first home game after, a little bit disappointing delay in that first home game. And we're thankful for Verneuil Construction for the new flagpole and flag. It's exciting to see something brand new and that we can all enjoy together and celebrate the same thing, football and our veterans.
I guess we have Miss Ellie John for an update for the endowment.
So I put it on there. I don't know whether she is or not. This is what I neglected to talk to her about beforehand. I know that we said that we might have some additional data at this meeting based on the golf endowment, but I don't see any additional data in it.
Dr. Cox, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can't see me, sorry. I don't know what happened to my video. It won't start, but anyway. There we go. There we go. Yes, I do have some additional information and I'm excited. So if I could take just a few minutes, I appreciate your time. As you know, the golf tournament was held July 22nd. It was held at Jefferson Landing Country Club. And I just can't say enough good things about our current endowment board, from the planning stages to volunteering on the day of the tournament to the cleanup afterwards. All of our members worked diligently to make this year's tournament a huge success. Just wanted to give a shout out to the current members. It's Jeannie Coward, Joanne Eller, Joyce Kilby, Michelle Limley, Sheila McMillan, Tasha Roundtree, Vicki Yates, Wesley Barker, Diane Eldrith, Amanda Coldiron, and Dr. Isa Cox. So along with several of our endowment board members, there were volunteers from our Central Support Services Office and several representatives from our schools. They were very helpful at the course, from offering assistance to the golfers, providing information about the endowment, to extending just, being there to thank him for supporting our school system. Several school staff members assisted us with a new addition to our tournament this year. While playing on the course, the golfers had opportunity to participate in additional games to win prizes or better their score. For instance, they could pay a little extra and try to beat the pro. They could better their starting tee, or they could win a donated prize, which was kind of encouraging to the members. They got to play and enjoyed it. The corporate and business community has provided great support of our fundraising efforts this year. We had 24 businesses and individuals from Ashland, Watauga to participate and or make donations. We had 7 corporate sponsors. 2 of those corporate sponsors have supported us in each of the 18 years that we've had a tournament. There was 1 hole-in-one sponsor, 11 hole sponsors, and 5 team sponsors. This year we offered new opportunities also for businesses and individuals to participate or sponsor or donate to our fundraiser. We had golf cart sponsors, lunch sponsors, and a host of monetary donors. I'm pleased to announce
that our net proceeds for this fundraiser is $32,408. That's about triple what we've been able to raise in the past. So on behalf of the Endowment Board, I want to thank everybody who participated, supported, and volunteers. To all of you, school board members, and to Dr. Cox, we are very appreciative of your support and the support the community has demonstrated for the Ashe County educators, and most importantly, for the students that we serve. Thank you.
And thank you, Marcia, for all of the work, because we certainly could not have done any of this or have raised this much without your leadership. Thank you, Marcia. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I saw several pictures. I believe I saw Dr. Simmons there as well, and looked like Dr. Cox taking a swing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I bought some mulligans. Yeah, I did.
All right, well, we're to the bottom. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh.
Don't wait on that one.
To go.
No, no.
I make a motion to adjourn.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you.